There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in.
All right, let the King of Glory in. Open up the door. Starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates, and prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him, and he said, behold, I looked, and there was a door standing open in heaven. I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here, and I will show you the things which must take place. That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass. Those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good afternoon, everybody. Andy White here. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And I just want to greet all my friends and supporters all across the fruited plain. Thanks for joining in with a brand new edition of Open Up the Doors. And if you are tuned in, I am streaming live on Facebook Live. You can go on over to my Open Up the Doors Facebook page at www.facebook.com/faithfm 91.7 and jump in the conversation over there. And please, for those of you who are on Facebook Live, share this into your streams, and also let me know where you are tuned in, where you are joining in from, where you're listening from. If you'd like to email me, you can email me at ajwhite777 at iCloud.com. That's ajwhite777 at iCloud.com. And again, it's just a thrill to be here with you, everybody. Well, it's been an incredible week. So much news, so much stuff going on, and a little bit today. I want to talk a little bit about, obviously, the biggest news. The most is number one. I'm just excited. I'm going to jump all over the place because I'm so excited. Obviously, for those of us who are paying attention and keep watch of these things, Israel just celebrated its 70th anniversary of being brought back into their land, a generation, a fig tree generation that we are part of watching and beholding and seeing and coming to pass. And it's exciting that Israel has just been able to celebrate its 70th anniversary. But in conjunction with that, we have moved, as you well know, I'm sure, we have moved our U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, something that should have been done a long time ago. And there's so much good news that I wish we could just talk about the good news today. I really do. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of fallout between the 70th anniversary of Israel's rebirth as a nation and the embassy move. That's all good, but there's a lot of bad and a lot of ugly with that as well, unfortunately. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about the good, the bad, and the ugly. But what a week as Israel celebrates its 70th anniversary, and the U.S. finally fulfilled what Congress authorized back in 1995 by moving the embassy to Jerusalem. And to quote Bibi Netanyahu, hey, did you happen to catch any of his speech this past week, past Monday, the day we moved the embassy over there, the day of Israel's anniversary? Bibi was just so exuberant in the video. I was at work, I couldn't see it live, but the clips I saw afterwards, he was just bubbling he was smiling. He looked like the what's that cat, the Cheshire cat, he was just smiling and exuberant, and rightfully so. And to quote Bibi, he said, what a glorious day it was for Israel and Jerusalem on Monday. He said, President Trump, by recognizing history, you have made history. And I want to play this clip from Bibi's speech on Monday, because I just want us to hear him and the joy and the not only joy, but strength and fortitude that he addressed the people with. Check this out.
What a glorious day. Remember this moment. This is history. President Trump, by recognizing history, you have made history. All of us are deeply moved. All of us are deeply grateful. For me, being here brings back wonderful memories from my childhood. גדלתי פה, עד גיל 3. הייתי הולך פה בשדות עד גבול ידוע, כי פה היה אסור ללכת יותר, זה כבר היה מסוכן. ולכן זה יום גדול. יום גדול לירושלים, יום גדול למדינת ישראל, יום שיחרט בזיכרוננו הלאומי לדורות. So I know some of you didn't follow every word I said in Hebrew. And I'll tell you that I spent the first 3 years of my life in this neighborhood and in Geddy Street in Talpiot, which is not very far away. There were a few charming houses here, many open fields. I remember ambling in these fields with my brother Yoni. He was 6, I was 3. He held my hand very tight. We'd walk to this wondrous house of Professor Joseph Klausner. The renowned Jewish historian was my father's teacher. I used to peer through the slats of the wooden synagogue where he and the great Israeli writer Shai Agnon used to pray on Shabbat. And David, I would approach this place right here, but only so far, because my mother told me, you can't go any further. This was near the border. It was exposed to sniper fire. That was then. This is now. Today, the embassy of the most powerful nation on earth, our greatest ally, the United States of America, today its embassy opened here.
And thank God for that. Yes, what a glorious day it is. What a wonderful, what an incredible time to be alive. I believe God has called forth the church for such a time as this. And that we would move our embassy. And it's just the embassy. A lot of people, I've been watching a lot of stuff. I always do, of course. I've been just watching a lot of stuff on Facebook. And folks, this is just the embassy. I think it's prophetic. I think it's good. We need, as America and as supporters of Israel, to recognize the truth and the fact and the reality, because that's all it really is, recognizing the reality that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel. President Trump did not proclaim Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. God did thousands of years ago. We're just recognizing that fact. And I liked when Bibi said, President Trump, by recognizing history, you made history. Because you know what? This, as I said a moment ago, this goes back to what Congress passed back in 1995, the Jerusalem Embassy Act. And that law required the U.S. to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem by a set deadline. 1995. But the law conceded that the move could be put off every 6 months at a time, as long as the president, quote, determines and reports to Congress in advance that such suspension is necessary to protect the national security interests of the United States. So the law had this built-in waive factor that a president like I said here, and it says here, he could suspend it. But what reasons really have we suspended it all this time? Really, these presidents in past, Clinton, Obama, even President Bush, a lot of rhetoric. They were always good with their rhetoric, and ever since 1995, Clinton, Bush, Obama kicked the can down the road, and in moving America's embassy in Israel, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, President Trump delivered on a promise made by Presidents Barack Obama promised to do it and didn't. George Bush promised to do it and didn't. Bill Clinton promised to do it and didn't. All these past presidents, as they were candidates, they promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem when they would be talking to Jewish audiences, like at AIPAC or something like that. But only Donald Trump brought the issue to the forefront after being elected president, and that's why we could say he kept his promise. President Bill Clinton, back in the 90s, he came into office. He came into office calling for the embassy to eventually be moved to Jerusalem. I'll say it again. George Bush promised it 18 years ago. He said, quote, as soon as I take office, yeah, really, as soon as I take office. He's been out of office now for how many years? But George Bush said, as soon as I take office, I will begin the process of moving the U.S. ambassador to the city of Israel, to the city, that Israel has chosen as its capital. Well, that would be Jerusalem. Obama said back in his administration, and he said it to AIPAC, I continue to say that Jerusalem will be the capital of Israel. And I have said that before, and I will say it again. Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain divided. But hey, you know what? You know what? For those of you who may doubt what I'm saying, I'll give it to you straight from the horse's mouth.
Well, something will happen when I become the president.
As
soon as I take office, I will begin the process of moving the United States ambassador to the city of Israel as chosen as its capital.
He didn't.
Your wife knows the show, brother. Thank you.
And Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided. But any agreement with the Palestinian people must preserve Israel's identity as a Jewish state with secure, recognized, defensible borders. And Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
I continue to say that Jerusalem will be the capital of Israel, and I have said that before, and I will say it again.
Jerusalem is still the capital of Israel and must remain an undivided city, accessible to all.
And those are probably the few times I personally would have agreed with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. They were right in those statements, but they were pandering to their audiences. And for that matter, so was George Bush, who I supported and I liked in large measure. But again, this president, this current president, moved beyond, President Trump moved beyond empty promises and moved beyond empty rhetoric to get it done. And that's why Bibi could say, thank you, President Trump. By recognizing history, you can make history. Now, I want to say something here because it's really been very, very evident and obvious for all of those who might be suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, TDS as I call it. I just need to gently tell you, you can question Donald Trump's reasoning all you want. You can impugn his motives all you want. But all it does, my friends, is make you on the left and who constantly attack this president for everything he does, all it does is make you look like a bunch of fools. It really does. Because instead of just the empty and shallow rhetoric that we've heard from the last three presidents in regards to moving our embassy to Jerusalem, the president Trump actually did what the Congress authorized over 20 years ago, 22 years ago to be exact, I believe. And not only did he actually keep a campaign promise, which is just something, and he's been keeping a lot of them, by the way. I don't want to go down a bunny trail too much with this. But he is being applauded and appreciated with accolades in Israel, and it's driving the left out of its collective mind. It really is. It's driving them out of their mind. And those of you who can never find anything good in this president, who was duly elected, by the way, and all of your raging and all of your Trump derangement syndrome fever, it's driving you. It's driving you into a further state of delirium. I'm seeing it on the pundits on the TV. I'm seeing it on the punditry of the news media. It's driving you guys nuts. But, again, to quote Bibi, thank you, President Trump, for having the courage to keep your promises.
We gather here today to celebrate another historic day in the life of this city, which I know will take its place alongside other momentous decisions in the history of our people. Over a century ago, the Balfour Declaration recognized the right of the Jewish people to a national home in this land. And exactly 70 years ago today,
that's right,
President Truman became the first world leader to recognize the newborn Jewish state. Last December, President Trump became the first world leader to recognize Jerusalem as our capital. And today, the United States of America is opening its embassy right here in Jerusalem. Thank you, President Trump, for having the courage to keep your promises.
And I say amen to that. Stick around, folks. Jesus, it's you. You're all that I'm after. And that is the truth, folks. Andy White here. Welcome back. You are listening to Open Up the Doors here on Faith FM at WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in Appegan, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. And I need to probably say that the views expressed by the host of this show, namely me, are molded by the Word of God along with the empirical evidence, both experiential and observational, which is lived out by me on a daily basis. But these are my views and not necessarily the views of Faith FM, and maybe not necessarily your views either. But you know what? It's my radio show. And if they're not your views, they ought to be your views, because I'm always right. And I'm just kidding. I hope you realize I'm just kidding. Having a little fun here. A little bit of fun here. Anyway, I like I said at the top of the show, I wanted to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the good is that Donald Trump kept the promise. And say what you will about the man, say what you will about some of his idiosyncrasies and some of those other things. And I don't want to go down that bunny trail, but I do have to agree with Bibi Netanyahu. He has the courage to stick to what he says he's going to do. And you have to give him that regardless of what you think of him. And I do. I give him accolades. I support him in this decision. And just like any other politician, just like any other one in government, sometimes these guys will do stuff you like, and sometimes these guys will do stuff you don't like. But I'll tell you one thing. I probably shouldn't go down this trail, but I'm getting pretty sick and tired of how the media and how the Trump bashes and those suffering from Trump derangement syndrome just can't seem to get a grip on what's going on. But anyway, I don't want to digress really there. It is Israel's 70th anniversary of their national rebirth. And wouldn't it be great, really, wouldn't it just be great if they could just celebrate in peace? Wouldn't it be great if they could just celebrate with fireworks like we celebrate our 4th of July without worrying about who's crashing in on their party, literally, who's invading on their borders? And wouldn't it be great if the soldiers didn't have to guard against 100,000 Arabs who are trying to burst through their borders? And I'm going to get to that in a moment. Because while Israel was trying to celebrate its 70th anniversary of its return to its homeland after thousands and thousands of years, something that's never happened in all of history, that a nation was plucked out and spread out across the planet and did not lose their identity, did not lose their national heritage, and came back into land. And the reason that all happened is because God made a promise to Abraham back in Genesis that his seed, his descendants, would possess the land forever. He gave it to Abraham as an eternal covenant. I saw somebody the other day, when they posted this meme about, and I know what the meme was trying to get at, but I responded to it. It was a meme of an American Indian, kind of with their arms crossed and saying, "So, Israel can have their homeland back because their ancestors lived there." And the innuendo was, well, then we should give America back to the Indians. But here's the thing. Israel isn't back in the land because their descendants lived there thousands of years ago. Israel's back in the land because God made a covenant promise with them. It's about God. It's about his covenant. It's about his oath. It's about his promise. Period. End of discussion. But I went down a bunny trail. But while Israel is trying to celebrate its 70th anniversary of its return to its homeland, the Arabs are all writhing in pain over their so-called Nakba Day, which they called, what Israel calls a celebration and an anniversary. The Arabs called Nakba Day, quote unquote, the day of catastrophe. Now, truly, my friends, truly, Israel, as the ancient promise given to Abraham declared, Israel is possessing the gates of their enemies. God said in Genesis 22, and your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. And what have we been seeing all week long on the news? Because Israel's back in the land, celebrating their national anniversary. Their enemies trying to break through the gates, so to speak. The borders. I can't help, as I've been watching this all week, I could not help but be reminded of the scenario in the book of Nehemiah. It says in Nehemiah, in Nehemiah, the Jews went back after the 70 years of captivity. They went back to Jerusalem. They went back to Judah to rebuild their land, to rebuild the city, to rebuild the temple. And in the book of Nehemiah, it says, but it so happened when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he was furious. Now, Sanballat was an Arab. Sanballat was the enemies of God's people. And it says here that he was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. And that's what you're seeing from people like Mahmoud Abbas and the Hamas leaders. They are furious that Israel is back in their land, rebuilding themselves and strengthening themselves and rejuvenating themselves as a people, as a nation. And it says in Jeremiah that Sanballat says, it spoke before his brethren in the army of Samaria and said, quote, what are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? It's coming. Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish? Stones that are burned. They were mocking Israel. The enemies of Israel were mocking them. And the scripture says, now it happened when Sanballat and Tobiah the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were being restored and the gaps were beginning to be closed. You know, when the enemies of Israel heard that America was moving its embassy, I'm just trying to draw a little bit of a correlation here. I recognize it's not the same exact thing, but I'm just trying to show you the spirit of what's going on here. When the enemies of Israel heard that America was recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, they went insane. They're going into delirium. And it says in the scripture that the Arabs, the Ammonites, the Ashdodites, they all became very angry, and all of them conspired together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. Hello, what have we been seeing on the news almost every night since Monday? Exactly this. A conspiracy to come and attack Jerusalem and to create confusion and to breed their hatred. And the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. Yesterday's enemies of Israel or today's enemies of Israel? The same enemies of Israel back 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, are the same enemies of Israel today. Yes, there's been some fallout, to use a term, because of us moving the embassy back to Jerusalem. But that's just an excuse, because this conflict has been going on since the moment that Jacob grabbed the heel of Esau. Oh, since the time when Abraham had to push aside Ishmael for the seed, the true seed of Sarah's womb, Isaac. Now, in this hour, in this time, we see these Hamas-produced riots. Do you know, by the way, that Hamas, which is really the big instigator right now, but you have Hezbollah, which is a different group, they're involved. But Hamas is instigating all this violence. You know, the Bible says, what's in a name? You know that the name Hamas is the Hebrew word for violence? And what Hamas does, they take all these poor, delusional saps, and they put them on the front lines. Hamas leadership feeds these people this false information so that they can rush straight into the arms of the IDF and be mowed down. They're not being mowed down. I take that back, because Israel's IDF uses great restraint. But look at the videos. The videos are out there. But see, this is what Hamas does. Hamas is taking these civilians and telling them to cut through the barbed wire, to cut through the lines, to throw Molotov cocktails, to throw kites that are on fire, to burn the fields. And Hamas is using all the ensuing and expected deaths for propaganda purposes. And it's working, unfortunately. They feed this stuff to the propaganda fodder for the anti-Israel media and for the UN. But life is not precious to these terrorists, Hamas. Their hatred is what they feed upon. You know, Golda Meir once made a very powerful statement. Golda Meir said, peace will come when the Arabs will love their children more than they hate us. Let that sink in, because it's truth. It's a powerful truth. She hit the nail on the head. Peace will come when the Arabs will love their children more than they hate us. Hamas right now, they're pushing civilians, women, children into the line of fire with the view of getting casualties. And they've been doing this for years, and they admit doing this. They use human shields. And just the other day, I think it was just yesterday. It was yesterday when I read this anyway. One of the more despicable things that they perpetrated, which goes right in line with what Golda Meir said. Because one of the most despicable things that I just read yesterday was how this 8-month or 9-month-old Palestinian baby died. And all the media outlets are placing the blame for the death of this Palestinian baby on the Israeli Defense Forces. And it went all over the media, and The Hill and the Huffington Post and all of the liberal media ran with the story of how this poor little baby died because Israel was launching tear gas across the lines to push back these hundreds of thousands of people that were trying to cross the border. But you know what? A couple of things here. But the first thing, I read several articles regarding this baby that died. And I didn't see not one report, not one journalist, not one question. Why was this baby even there? Who would bring an 8-month-old baby to the front lines of a riot and of a they're calling it a peaceful protest? There's nothing peaceful about it. I'll get to that in a moment. But who would bring their baby there? But here's the thing. As all the media was reporting how the horrible Israelis killed this baby without asking why it was there in the first place, it was leaked out by a doctor, a Palestinian doctor in the Gaza hospital, that the baby didn't die from the tear gas. It had a pre-existing condition. Excuse me. Now, maybe the tear gas might have triggered it, but this doctor said it wasn't the tear gas that killed the baby. It was its pre-existing condition. Yet all the media talked about Israel killing this poor baby. And it is sad. It is sad that Hamas, it is sad that these people, as Golda Meir said, hate the Israelis more than they love their own children. The other day, And I got to take a break in a moment. But the other day in the United Nations, the ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, who I applaud. I've said it before, I'll say it again. She's probably the best ambassador we've had since Bolton, since Michael Bolton, not Michael Bolton, whatever his name is, Bolton, but the other one. Who is the other one? I can't think of her name right now. Fitzpatrick, Jean Fitzpatrick. What a great secretary. Ambassador to the UN was Jean Patrick back in the day. Nikki Haley's just like her. But she said the other day, in recent days, Hamas terrorists backed by Iran have incited attacks against Israeli security forces and infrastructure. That is violence, Hamas, that should occupy our attention too, Haley said during an emergency meeting at the UN Security Council. Quote, she says, no country, and it's true what she says here, no country in this chamber would act with more restraint than Israel has. In fact, the records of several countries here today suggest that they would be much less restrained. And she rails against them for their double standards. But that's par for the course for the UN. We know how this works. And practically the entire lamestream media. And you know what I think I'm going to refer them to a little bit more accurately? We've called them the liberal mainstream media, the lamestream media. I think I'm going to start calling them the miscreant stream media, because it's like news reports like that baby. These guys have become nothing but miscreants, and all they're doing is attacking Israel's right to defend itself, and attacking Israel and portraying Israel as the aggressor, all the while as anyone with 2 eyes and a brain can see that all Israel is doing is protecting its border from the violent elements of Hamas. And we have, once again, all the TDS sufferers blaming Donald Trump for the loss of life following the embassy move. Never mind that this violence has been going on for thousands of years. MSNBC's TDS sufferer Steve Schmidt said Trump destabilized the entire region with the embassy move. I really do think that Mr. Schmidt from MSNBC needs some history lessons. As I've said, the entire region hasn't been stable for over 3,000 years. I got so much more here, folks, but it's getting late here. I got to take a break. The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Danny White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in that peak, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. And thanks everyone for joining in for this brand new edition of Open Up the Doors on this very rainy day. We've had a bunch of rainy days this past week here on the east end of Long Island. But anyway, if you are just joining in, just tuning in, I am also streaming live on Facebook Live on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page over at facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. That's facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. If you've never liked my Open Up the Doors Facebook page, please like the page and share it around in your streams and invite people. If you find that this ministry has been a blessing to you, informative to you, we want to be all those things. I want to be a blessing, I want to be informative, and all the different things that we cover here, I cover here on Open Up the Doors. And one thing I want to mention before I move on, and I'm running out of time, and I've got a stack of stuff here to get through it. I never get through it all. I got a few minutes left here. Several years back, I wrote an article that I've posted from time to time, and I've even edited it from time to time, called Why I Stand with Israel. And I do stand with Israel. But I wrote the opening sentences of that article. I wrote this. I wrote that the days are upon us when God-fearing Christians, Bible-believing Christians, but the days are upon us when God-fearing Christians are going to have to make a conscious decision to both vocally and boldly stand up for the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. Because there's the gathering clouds of an ominous storm are thickening. And the storm is going to hit with all the fury of hell. And it's getting ugly out there, folks. And part of the big ugliness is the media. And what the media is doing is beyond outrageous. What I'm going to designate as the miscreant media, because that's what they've become. And I almost don't know what story to go to because I've got a stack of stories here. But let me predicate it with this, because the lamestream, the miscreant stream media, they are the perfect useful idiots for tachia. What's tachia? Again, it's the what's the word I want to use? Tachia. It's the practice of lying and dissimulation that Islam teaches against the infidel, to hide their real purposes and to hide their real agendas. And it's a real thing. It's not made up. Look it up. Google it. Tachia. But the lamestream media, they are the perfect useful idiots for tachia. Because just the other day, a Hamas leader, a top Hamas leader, said in an interview, he admitted that the terror group was, quote, deceiving the public, tachia, when it spoke of peaceful resistance. The day before he said this, 60 people were killed. I don't know what the numbers is right now, what the numbers have gone up to with the Palestinian and Arab deaths. But when he spoke this the other day, 60 people were killed in violent protests on the Gaza border. Out of those 60 people, more than 50 of them were Hamas operatives that they caught on camera, trying to cut through the barbed wire, throwing Molotov cocktails, attacking the Israelis with whatever they could attack them with, the IDF. But out of the 60 people that were killed, 50 of them plus, I think it was 52 the number, were actually Hamas operatives. And this Hamas leader admitted that they were deceiving the media, deceiving the public by using the term peaceful resistance. Speaking to Qatar's Al Jazeera network on Sunday, Mahmoud al-Zahar, in fact, he's the co-founder of Hamas. Mahmoud al-Zahar, the co-founder of Hamas and a senior member of the terror group's leadership, said that his group was, check this out, this is a quote, clear terminological deception. That's the word he used, that they were using clear terminological deception. In other words, they were purposely using terminology like peaceful resistance or peaceful protest to throw it out into the echo chamber of the media. But this is his quote in his interview to Al Jazeera in Qatar. This is not peaceful resistance. This is an armed struggle. Has the armed struggle diminished? No. On the contrary, it's growing and developing. That's clear, he said. So when we talk about peaceful resistance, we are deceiving the public. This is a peaceful resistance bolstered by a military force, Hamas, and by security agencies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and enjoying tremendous popular support by deceiving them. And I'm saying that for this reason, because as I said a moment ago, the miscreant mainstream media are useful idiots because they sop it up and they lap it up and they take it up. And when I say that the days are upon us when God-fearing Christians need to take a stand and make a conscious effort we've got to push back on these things. I'm on the radio pushing back on it because it's beyond outrageous what these people are doing. The Caliphate News Network, CNN, for those of you who don't know. I dubbed CNN a while back the Caliphate News Network because over there in Turkey, a little bit of an aside here, over there in Turkey, CNN Turk was taken over by the state media, by Erdogan state media. So in Turkey, CNN is literally state-controlled. So what better name than to call them the Caliphate News Network? But anyway, CNN reported the other day, quote, while Israel celebrated the U.S. Embassy move to Jerusalem yesterday, CNN couldn't bring themselves to cover anything that might make President Trump look good. Here's the thing, CNN refused. You know those clips I played at the top of the show? And those were only a few clips of like a 15-minute speech that Netanyahu spoke on Monday. But CNN didn't even air it. CNN refused to air Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. But they focused rather, on Trump's decision to move the embassy and how, quote, it was such a huge blow to the Palestinians. Forget about the celebrating of Israel. Forget about all the good things that are going on there. How Israel has bloomed like a rose in the desert, and how they're doing all kinds of. I won't go down that road, but we just know it. But CNN, a huge blow to Palestinians, and how CNN feigned outrage over this was great. This was great. CNN, they were complaining about, quote, a non-bipartisan delegation that attended the opening ceremony. So number one, they didn't air it in the first place, and then they complained that it was a non-partisan delegation. So whose fault is that? Newsflash to CNN: the Democrats were not banned from attending. They just didn't want to go. You're complaining that there were no Democrats there, but they were the ones who chose not to go. They just didn't show up. It wasn't because they weren't invited. It wasn't because they were banned. They're just too consumed with their hatred of Donald Trump to show any kind of acknowledgement of success. That's the bottom line of those people who are suffering from TDS, and that's most of the media. And in the meantime, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, they have all become the propaganda wings, the propaganda outlets for Hamas. These news networks have become nothing but abominable and disgusting cesspools, in my humble opinion, of brain-dead zombies when you look at their reporting. Hamas has been completely clear about its intentions. It's just that our media here in America isn't reporting on their intentions. The co-founder of Hamas goes to Qatar, a friendly audience over at Al Jazeera, and tells them precisely what they're doing. We're lying to the public. We're using the public. We're lying to the media. But our media doesn't report that. I mean, it's almost it's laughable. It's hysterical, except that it's so serious. As Ben Shapiro said the other day, Hamas isn't hiding the ball here, folks. The media is what's hiding the ball. The American media is hiding the ball. The media are playing propaganda wing for Hamas. It just gets really infuriating to me. You know, I think we have so many prime examples of why the mainstream media has rightfully earned their reputation for being fake news. You know, all the leftists are complaining that how Trump and those who support him, and I won't. Remember, folks, just for the record, for those of you who may not go too far back with me, I wasn't a big supporter of Donald Trump running for president. I voted third party. I had my issues. But once he became president, I said, we got to give the guy a chance and see what he does. No sense crying over spilled milk. The election happened. He won. I didn't vote for him, but I'm liking some of the things. Like any politician, I said it before. I'm liking some of the things he's doing. Maybe not so much some other things. That's not the point. What the point is when you have to, with vitriol, lie and cheat and be disingenuous, and that's why you get your moniker of being fake news media. Because we have so many prime examples. ABC News political analyst last Sunday, Matthew Dowd, wrongly referred to the Iran nuclear deal as a treaty. Dowd said on ABC News, on national TV, Matthew Dowd, who would have guessed that the first one to violate that treaty would be us and not Iran? I mean, we're the first one in violation of this treaty. Excuse me, sir. Either you are really stupid or you're pretending to be stupid. Which one is it? Because everyone knows it wasn't a treaty. Everyone knows, or ought to know, the Iranians never even signed the Iranian deal. Everyone ought to know that the Obama administration back in 2015, in reporting to Congress, said that the deal wasn't even legally binding. So why do you call yourself a political analyst? You go on ABC News and lie like that. And to me, that is a prime example of why you guys deserve to be called the fake news media, the lying media, the miscreant media, because it's really even worse than just fake news. It's the blatant lying and spreading of misinformation regarding the known facts that is truly outrageous to me and should be outrageous to every Christian, because we're supposed to be of the truth and standing up for the truth, and that a so-called analyst can go on a major news network and disseminate a demonstrably false statement and not be corrected. No one corrected him on the panel. It's truly troublesome, folks. It's called propaganda. That's called the dissemination of misinformation. And fake news is too gracious a label for this blatantly egregious propaganda. And folks, I'm here to tell you, we've got to take a stand. We have got to take a stand. Those of us who support Israel, those of us who believe in the truth, we've got to take a stand against the progressive liberal media and also the progressive liberal churches. That could be a whole other topic, but I'm running out of time. And push back and stand up and call them out and rebuke them. Rebuke them for their lies. Rebuke them for the misinformation. Rebuke them and correct them. Because I don't believe for a moment that a guy like Matthew Dowd did not know these things. It's just not credible that you could be a political analyst and not know what you should have known. That is out there, not hidden away, but it's out there. But folks, I'm running out of time. I want to just close this broadcast today with this. I will never back down personally from the eternal promise of God that he gave to Abraham, because the eternal promise of God is forever, and it still stands today. And God said, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. And we could bless Israel, and we could bless the Jewish people simply by, as I said a moment ago, taking a stand against the lies and standing firm against their enemies. And I'm not suggesting that we do that in any kind of a violent Hamas sort of way, but in a civil sort of way. I'm so much out of time, folks. I got to run. Thanks for tuning in. God bless. I absolutely have so much more to say, but not enough time to do it. Thanks for tuning in, folks. God bless. I'll see you next week, same time. Keep it right here on Faith FM. Some great Christian programming still to come.